This is a video/audio recording of my service learning journals at the Flint Hills Discovery Center, starting with Journal 1. So my first question, understanding of service learning is directly what you think it might be. It's a way to learn about your content by helping others. So teaching is a lot about serving your community, and so is types of community service. So I think having us do community service to learn about teaching is really effective because teaching essentially is just community service that you get paid for. Looking at the course syllabus, some of the academic content that might be associated with this, my mind goes to ethical considerations because in a regular classroom, you have very specific rules laid out to ethical and other policy objectives you have to follow to, keep it and maintain a classroom. But in this museum type place, there aren't those strict guidelines that you would get from a school board or a principal. So you have to kind of make those ethical delineations by yourself. So I think this will kind of test how how well I'm able to do that without being told. So kind of being able to take initiative in my ethical considerations. So describing the feelings and expectations of this. Before I had gone into this, I really did expect it to be a really great resume builder, something that was going to be really exciting, a way to engage with younger students, because I don't get to do that often, and a way to kind of get out of the regular classroom type feeling and be able to be in an education program that took place over in the Discovery Center instead. 3 ways I think we'll be using the course content, and then going back to the 3 ways that I think the course content will be used. So number 1 is knowing what type of ethics you have to follow no matter what, and being able to follow those in this less structured place. Second, we talked about different philosophies of education and being a little bit outside of my own philosophy and getting to learn other young teachers' philosophy in this Discovery Center, I think will be used. And third, we are constructing our own personal philosophy of teaching, and I think being able to get experiences from all different types of education will help me better create my own philosophy and how I feel about teaching. The 5th question, other service learning that I've been involved with. I was a part of this Daily School of Leadership Lead Studies program, which was heavily based around service learning. And what we did was form a community partner with Ogden, and we put on like a Christmas store / party for them. And it definitely was a really good experience because I got to learn about the relatively underprivileged community and things that we can do to help them. We kind of learned about the root problems and how we can start tackling those instead of just giving band-aid solutions. So that was a really great program. So Journal 2, question 1, describing it. It was the Flint Hills Discovery Center spring break program that they had been doing the entire week of spring break. So I went on that last Friday it was our spring break as well. It was at the Discovery Center, and it was mostly younger kids. I think the earliest was, I want to say 6 or 7, and then the oldest was about 12. And why I chose this one, because they got back to me really easy. Their communication was really good with me. It was something that I knew that I could do and continue in the future if I wanted to, and that was really exciting to know that my service learning didn't have to end there. And also it's a place that I could potentially work someday and get really good education training in more of a job. And so second, my experiences, how they made me feel. It was both positive and negative. It was positive because it was overall a really upbeat, pretty happy place to be. All of the kids were having a really good time, and so it seemed were the adults. So that was a really great environment to be in. I also felt like I learned a lot about how to implement museum education and how to work with younger kids. So that was really positive. On the negative half, however, I noticed that they weren't as grateful, which is might be a bad word, as some other places I worked with are. Some other places I worked with, they give their volunteers lots and lots of praise. They tell them how needed they are and how thankful they are to have them. At the Discovery Center, though, it almost seemed like I was another body standing around. There were maybe 12 kids with about 4 or 5 educators, including myself. So I didn't necessarily feel like I was needed, and that was an interesting feeling. The second half of this is asking how I handled that. I still tried to be as upbeat and as helpful as possible because I'm there to help. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I don't think I should have done that differently. I could have very well been like, they don't need me, I'll just leave, or something like that. And I just stayed and tried to help out as much as I could. How I'm interpreting thoughts and feelings and decisions is the third question. These students were really engaged, and I interpreted them to be engaged because they didn't need a whole lot of direction to go interact with the things around them. These the evidence I have about that, they were given an assignment and they just immediately went and started doing it. A lot of that was because I think the assignments were really exciting. We did one thing where we asked them to find fire facts because it was a fire themed camp day. And they immediately went into the museum and started finding fire facts. So that was evidence that they were really engaged, and that was really exciting for me to see. And so I think that interpretation of them being engaged was accurate. The ways that I experienced difficulties was because, again, I didn't necessarily feel needed. And that's difficult because I like to be in a situation where I feel needed and I feel like I have a lot of control over what's going on. The way that I dealt with this was, again, just trying to do the best with what I could. And those personal characteristics of mine that enforced that were just my willingness to help most of the time. Ways that I succeeded, and personal characteristics that helped me be successful. I think I'm normally a pretty outgoing, willing to help type of person. I think that outgoingness helped me interact with those younger students, so I really enjoyed that. The situation reinforced my values because, especially some of the priorities I have as a teacher, some of the priorities that I have are just making sure that things are decently organized. Not too much, but at least a little bit. This experience did not seem very organized to me. The kids were kind of just running around as they pleased. They had a lot of what seemed just like recess time, which might be successful, but again, I'm a person that believes that if students are in a place of learning, that's at least a little bit of what they should be doing, and I'm not sure if that really happened, so it definitely reinforced my value of trying to get students to learn really wherever they are. 8 specific elements of academic materials that related to this service learning. We've talked a lot about just making sure students are engaged or else they will not have a good time. These students were really engaged, so this related, those two concepts related a lot because the teachers were obviously making sure that students were engaged. And so my service learning really matched up with what we were learning in class. And then this final question asks how I'm able to use a skill related to academic material and where I find my lack of knowledge limiting my actions. A lot, I think, of what I've personally learned in the class thus far is learning to be adaptable. If your lesson doesn't always go the way you want it to, then you have to find a quick adaptation. And this happened in here as well because sometimes when the students did act up, you would have to pause the class and try to do something else, so the lessons didn't always go 100% how you wanted them to go. And that challenged my lack of knowledge on how to help address younger students in the classroom because I normally don't work with them that much. So this final journal, so this service learning, I think, really enforced my idea of service learning. earlier I had talked about how it's just a way for us to get involved in our communities and know what's going on in the areas that we teach. And I think if I were to elaborate it a little bit, it would be that teachers also need to know the demographic of who they're teaching. And I this helped me learn a lot of the demographic of who I was teaching, especially from the Manhattan area, because you're not seeing these students in a 100% classroom setting. So you're finding out a lot about the people that you're serving, and that's really important to service learning. And I think that's a lot of the reason why it was included in this course, is because we learn a lot about the people around us and how we can best help them. The academic content that I identified in my journal, one of the ones that was associated was again the ethical considerations, and I really do think that was associated very well because, again, I didn't have those specific outlines of what I needed to be doing and how I needed to be acting and all of that. So I had to make those decisions a lot by myself, and I think that definitely challenged my integrity as a teacher.